Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Corey Lawrence, and I'm coming to you live here from WeWork in downtown Washington, D.C. I'm one of the organizers of DC Startup Week and also the co-founder of IRL Agency. DC Startup Week is a year-round organization, and we also have our 5-day conference that you guys are now a part of that happens every September that focuses on building the startup community. We want to give a quick shout out to our title sponsors, Next, Insperity, WIS, and Technology Rivers. Thank you so much for making this week possible. If you have any questions throughout the talk, please put in all caps question at the start of your chat so that we can make sure not to miss any of your fantastic questions for our panelists today. We are so excited to have Michelai Graham moderating this discussion on launching a business during COVID. Michelai is the marketing editor of Technically DC. She has a master's degree in investigative reporting from American University, where she began reporting on cyber and tech news. So please join me in welcoming Michelai and our panelists to the DC Startup Week stage.
Thank you, Corey. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is going to be a very fun panel, and I'm actually very excited to hear some insights about how these businesses are operating through COVID. I'm going to go ahead and list off our panelists, and then I'm going to let them talk a little bit about their businesses. So joining us today, we have Ellie, founder of Ellie Jane Collective, Roxy, co-founder of IRL Agency, and Ryan, CEO of Mozzeria. So I'm going to go ahead and let them talk a little bit about their businesses. Roxy, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Roxy Jahangeri. I am one of the co-founders of IRL Agency, a creative marketing agency based here in Washington, D.C., with a mission to bring your brand's story and vibe to life through experience-driven content. I am also a very proud, our IRL Agency is also a proud sponsor of DC Startup Week. In fact, you met Corey, my business partner and co-founder, a couple minutes ago. And we're running all of the virtual event production behind the scenes and the digital marketing for the week. And actually, Corey's one of the 3 amazing organizers who runs point on all the digital marketing and communications throughout the year. So a shameless little shout out for Corey and the team at DC Startup Week for doing such a great job. But that's really what we pride ourselves on at IRL Agency, is really being that one-stop shop that brings all of your marketing and event needs to life. So that's a little bit about me, and honored to be here today.
Awesome, thank you. Just to help the awkwardness of people not speaking over each other and trying to talk at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and try to make sure I call on the panelists so they can go ahead and have their chance. Ryan, do you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to represent Mozzeria. We just opened 2 weeks ago, so we are thrilled about that we're opening even in the midst of a pandemic. And we are a deaf-owned, deaf-led business. We have wood-fired Neapolitan pizza. We've opened our first location in San Francisco in 2011, and this is our second location. And we are absolutely excited about the goal of creating employment opportunities in an environment that, that sometimes is opposed to providing those opportunities. And of course, feeding hungry people like you our delicious wood-fired Neapolitan pizza. So I'll talk a bit about that experience, the journey, and so forth, and I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Awesome, 2 weeks ago, that is crazy. I'm excited. All right, Ellie, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. I am the founder and chief creative officer of Elly Jane Collective, which is a virtual lifestyle brand focused on empowering and supporting female creatives. So everything, all the products that we feature in our online store come from either a female founded business or a female artisan herself. And we have a whole variety of home goods, accessories, gifts, that sort of thing. And we actually launched back in April of 2020. So kind of just went for it in the middle of the pandemic. Figured we would kind of see what happens, and it's been an interesting journey. And so we're just really excited to be here and talk about that experience. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. I have a few questions that's going to get this conversation rolling, but please, anyone watching, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I will add those in as well. So first off, what was the process like launching a business during the pandemic, and have you been doing it alone or with a team? Ryan, I feel like you can talk a bunch about this. Can you go ahead and answer that for me?
I'll try my best, and I'll try not to be long-winded, but there were a lot of moving pieces involved in opening a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic. We were most fortunate to have a partnership with Communication Services for the Deaf, otherwise known as CSD. They provided entrepreneurs like myself and a variety of other folks with resources such as funding to PR, to legal, to HR, to communications and marketing support. So that honestly has been amazing, and a cost-saving opportunity as well, which, you know, in a very lean environment, you know, I'm sure as you are all well aware, many restaurants particularly have opened and closed throughout the pandemic. And so we were looking for a creative strategy in the course of this opening in an area where we did a lot of research in terms of operating in a lean environment. And so we had to carve out the budget to support PPE, you know, that wasn't included in our initial budget and estimates. So there was a lot of collateral issues that we had to deal with. And unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to pivot in terms of relying on, you know, we wanted to have everything in-house, but we had to do takeout and delivery. And so, I mean, we wanted to talk about our dining environment. That's really what was driving a lot of this. We have 4,000 square foot space. You know, at full capacity, we can hold lots of people, but in terms of supporting our employees and our customers to make sure everyone was healthy and safe, that we actually had to redo our predictions, and we're looking every day, you know, I mean, in terms of a daily basis, in terms of, you know, demand and our customers, to make sure that they are feeling secure in our business operations. I mean, and I think all of us can relate to that, right? In terms of, we know what pre-COVID looked like. You have to pivot a lot on a daily basis, but so that always comes into play. But then of course you add the pandemic, and then construction estimates with the pandemic. We had delays because of supply chain interruption and so forth. And so we had a crew member who ended up having COVID. So we had to delay our timeline for a specific area, you know, that they were working on in the space. And so we initially had planned to open in the spring, and we had a several month delays where we didn't open until Labor Day. So, you know, talking about being agile, you know, it's all I can say is that at the end of the day, if we're able to do this in the midst of a pandemic, I feel like we could do anything.
Oh, I absolutely agree. That is amazing. I'm happy for you and glad you're able to still open. And now all I can think about is pizza. So that's great. I'm hungry now. Ellie, do you want to go ahead and talk about your experience? And you can also talk about your thought process of how you came up with your business and what it was even like, you know, the feeling of, you know, when the pandemic first hit, where did your mind go?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have the benefit of obviously not being location bound. And so as a virtual business, I think, you know, to some degree, it's a little bit easier to pivot because you're in this atmosphere where everyone is accessing you virtually anyway. So we were kind of lucky in that aspect of being able to kind of be pretty nimble because we were virtual. But we also had to be creative. You know, we wanted to do a lot of collaborations and partnerships with local businesses in DC. There's so many amazing businesses, and specifically women founded and women owned businesses that we have partnerships with that we were really excited about doing, you know, pop-up shops or collaborations, or, you know, just kind of being able to physically be in spaces to kind of get the word out about our business. Because I think, you know, the benefit of having a physical location is that you get that foot traffic that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get online. So we've had to be a little bit more innovative from that standpoint and do some virtual pop-up shops. And every month we do a Women-Owned Wednesday series where we do an IG Live event with a female founder of a business, a lot of the time in DC, but there have been several others as well. And all of our vendors are kind of spread out around the country. But, you know, in terms of launching, I kind of went back and forth because we had been working on this, you know, obviously for months, COVID, and had a very specific way that we wanted to roll it out that involved having, you know, a pop-up launch party and all of that stuff that we just didn't get the opportunity to do physically. And so we kind of had to move everything into a virtual format, and kind of be able to engage people and reach out to our network of friends and partners to be engaged online and kind of spread the word that way. I think there's a lot of benefits to that, but I also think there's a lot of challenges, and there's so much content digitally right now and so many things to consume that, you know, you really have to figure out what differentiates you. And I think for us, it's obviously that female owned aspect. I think, you know, that is a huge differentiator for us, and being able to connect with like-minded businesses in the area, or even globally or, you know, nationally, to really be able to get the word out. But it definitely is a challenge. And even with, you know, stocking products, there's been lots of delays from our vendors. Some of them work with artisans that are, you know, international. And so getting some of those products physically has been tough. Like, we've had delays for months, and it's been tough, you know, things have been selling out, and then we haven't been able to replenish them because of delays from, you know, a shipping standpoint. Things have been held up at the airport, you know, all kinds of challenges that you don't anticipate. And then you just kind of have to make it work. And I think luckily, you know, we've been able to do that. And hopefully one day we will be able to have a physical space and do physical events. But, you know, I think that's one of the things about being a business owner, is that you kind of always have to be prepared for the unknown. And the good news is that I think everybody's kind of in the same boat right now. Like, nobody knows, you know, what's going to happen. Nobody knows what the future is going to look like. And so to some degree, it puts everybody on a level playing field, because we're all just trying to figure it out. So anyways, I think there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons, but the benefit is that we're kind of all navigating it together. And I think there's something really special about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Roxy, do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is a little bit, it's a little bit different. Corey and I, actually, fun fact, we met at DC Startup Week last year.
I didn't know you guys.
Yeah, and he's now my business partner and co-founder, which I'm so grateful for every single day. But we met at DC Startup Week last year. He was, you know, accepting tickets at the door. I walked in, and we just kind of, you know, I had just quit my job a few months ago. I worked for Deloitte, one of, you know, as a technology consultant. And I had my side business called DC Brunch Club, where I was in the live event space. We were throwing, you know, 1,000 to 2,000 person pop-up experiences throughout the year. So not being my full-time passion, I really wanted to exploit the DC market with that in the event space. And I met Corey at DC Startup Week. I knew I needed a partner, and I knew I needed a digital marketing partner, because he actually targeted me with his ads and found me somehow on Instagram. I had no idea what DC Startup Week was. I'd never heard of it. It's not like I tagged myself as an entrepreneur on any of my social media pages or anything like that. And I was like, how did this person find me? And I had no idea it was actually Corey behind the scenes who targeted me. I saw the ad, I showed up at the event, and I met my current business partner. And we really shared a vision, the same vision, right, for what we wanted to do, both from the marketing standpoint and the events side. And it was just kind of a no-brainer from there. Obviously, we took it steady. We went steady. We were in a relationship for a while. He brought me on to a bunch of proposal work with him as his event counterpart, and vice versa. And we did a few different pop-up experiences together. And then it was really during COVID, my first business, DC Brunch Club, you know, I depend on that, a lot of that income, and it was completely shut down with the live events. And I, you know, about 80% of my income was just out the window, right, in 2020 for the unforeseeable future. And I was just like, how are we gonna do this? And Corey, you know, was there also in his own way, you know, being in the restaurant space and the entertainment hospitality space. We were just like, what are we gonna do? So luckily, we knew the ladies, the CEOs at Carpe Diem, which is a video-based dating app, and we were already talking to them about doing some sort of experiential live event for their app. And it was supposed to be an in-person kind of dating show. And we got on the phone within a day, and we're like, let's do this virtual. Let's create a whole dating experience. People are at home. Let's be matchmakers. Let's make this fun and exciting. So within 2 weeks, we launched our first episode, literally working day and night to come up with this concept. And then, you know, that quickly transitioned into us learning about the virtual event space. And Corey and I both knew it was it was, you know, we didn't know how long this was going to last. We were kind of exploring it. We didn't really know why, but we were like, let's just do this. We're being pushed in this direction. Let's learn it. It's going to come in handy at some point. And then we quickly launched a virtual festival concept after that, you know, because we were really passionate about helping some of these restaurants that were going out of business. And one of my favorites, El Techo, launched a GoFundMe campaign. And I was like, we were both like, let's help these guys out. Let's do a virtual experience. Let's activate their space. So we came up with a whole virtual lifestyle concept called Together. And then now we're here and we're running the virtual event production at DC Startup Week. And we have many more business opportunities coming up through virtual events. So that's kind of our story.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So you guys all have kind of touched on this, but I want to come back to it. How did you decide that launching during this time was the right fit for you? And did you ever doubt that decision? Ellie, do you want to go ahead and answer that first?
Sure. I mean, I think there was never, you know, initially the idea was just to launch. And so, you know, when COVID hit, it did delay us. I mean, initially we had started thinking that we were probably going to launch in March. And then obviously with COVID, I think, you know, we kind of took a step back and thought a lot about, because, you know, a big part of our brand pillars as well is activism and being a part of the social commentary, you know, within society as a whole. There's been a whole lot of that obviously recently, but it's always been there. And so we kind of struggled and thought really hard about, you know, is this the right thing for people right now? I think everybody was just trying to kind of get by and live their day-to-day lives. And did they need another business in their face being like, pay attention to me? And so, you know, that was really important to us too, was not to bombard people and not to come across as unauthentic in the pursuit of, you know, wanting to start a business. I think that's really important. And so we took some time. We took about a month to think it through and to figure out how we were going to do it and what that would look like. And ultimately, we discovered that people were hungry for this. Like, we had already been a month into COVID. People were struggling, you know, from a financial standpoint, whether they had lost their job or their job future was uncertain, or whether they just kind of needed something to lift them up. And so this felt like the right opportunity to do that. And I don't think there was a day when I was like, oh, we're definitely going to do this. Like, this is the right thing to do. I just decided that, you know, we were going to do it, and it was either going to work or it wasn't. And we got really lucky that people were really engaged and felt really great about the business and were extremely supportive. And so, you know, shout out to all of our customers, because they were the ones that really made it happen and decided that, you know, they were going to support us. And so, you know, we're really grateful for that. But I think every day, you know, I still, in my mind, I'm like, was this the right thing? Was it the right time? Should I have waited? Should I be doing things differently? And then I kind of have to just stop myself, I think, like all of us do, and take a minute to just be grateful for what we have. Because every day is new, and some days, like, just being able to get up in the morning and do the day-to-day grind of the business is like enough, you know, and other days, maybe I feel innovative, or I feel like I want to do new things and try new things, but it really just kind of depends. So I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, oh, this is 100% the right thing to do. But because of the support of partners that I've had, and because of the support of our customers, we've been lucky enough to be able to go forward.
That is honest. Thank you for sharing that. Ryan, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Absolutely. I don't know if you've heard the saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So with that in mind, I'm incredibly grateful for the support of the community on H Street, the Trinidad area, Ivy City, Noma, Union Market. All of, you know, everyone around here have come together as a community and support one another, you know, the local mom and pop businesses particularly. And I have been incredibly inspired by the restaurant industry at large in terms of how we've come together to support one another. I mean, of course, we're going to be in competition, but, you know, in this time of crisis, we have become most innovative And I think we've been able to share best practices, lessons learned based upon everyone's individual business experiences and draw from that to support one another and to help us, decide, yeah, this wasn't the ideal time to open a restaurant, but like Ellie said, with the community support and the prescribed, course of action and way forward. I mean, I don't think any of us thought we would be here or this is the way a business would move forward in general. But in terms of operations, I feel like we've tried to be incredibly creative with our partnerships, local vendors, as well as other businesses in the areas. And like I said, sharing these best practices and lessons learned has really helped us think outside the box. And, mobile technology, we have that available where it actually has filled some in-person processes, some gaps or shortfalls that we were noticing. And so being able to be innovative and outside the box, and like Roxy mentioned, the virtual festivals, the street eateries, having that options. We've applied for a permit for a parklet, which, allows us to host people, and to be able to, we ran to Lowe's to buy patio furniture. We're winging it. We're all just sort of figuring it out as we go. And in terms of these experiments, but it's giving us, keeping our business afloat, and it's giving us an opportunity to change people's expectations. And I think, again, like I've reiterated, it's been a learning process all along.
I love that. I feel like in a lot of the conversations I've had with businesses during this time, you expect them to say they're fearful or they're scared, but a lot of businesses are like, you know what, this is the best time to experiment, try something new. If it doesn't work, we're going to switch it up fast because we have the space to do that. So thank you. Roxy, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback, yes, to everything everyone has said, I echo those sentiments. And what I would add is that although we were running at full speed ahead with a couple of the concepts we were trying to launch, I think something that COVID really did for us that helped my business, and I'm sure a lot of other businesses, gave us a little time and a little space, right, to separate ourselves from the chaos of what life was pre-COVID. And really, for us, launching a new business, thinking about the things that were important to us, like our personal why. Like, why are we even doing this? Why are we so passionate about making, a difference in DC and really starting a new agency? Really, with both of our, passions and our expertise coming from events and marketing, like, why was this so important to us? And COVID gave us some time to really think about that and dig deep and find our brand's heart. Like, what do we exist to do? Why are we doing it? How will we do it? And how are we going to differentiate ourselves in this very saturated market, right, of events and experiences? And when we really broke it down, a lot of self-discovery, a lot of like really tough conversations with ourselves and with each other. And when we really broke it down, we were like, we want to bring the city's vibe to life. Like, everyone is after a vibe, and that's really been like the decision-making in people's, when you really listen to how people describe a good person or a good restaurant or a good brand, it's all about their vibe and how they feel with that brand and what they say. And, the vibe is a thing. So that the space actually gave us some time to really think about that and come down and to the conclusion of like our true mission and really being able to create a vibe for businesses and brands. And to your point, Ryan, like I was in New York City during post-COVID, like the safe part of COVID. And I noticed that all of the outdoor patio areas were bustling. And some of those restaurants really took the time to, paint outside and recreate the brands that they had inside the restaurant onto the streets. And we were starting to make decisions which restaurants to go to based on how the patio looked, right? So it's the vibe that you're trying to create. And even something like that, like really taking the time to think through what is the vibe that I can bring my customers outside of my restaurant, because that is how they're going to make a decision. So my hat's off to you for doing that.
Awesome. All right. Next
Exactly. If I could just speak to that.
Yeah, please.
You know, American restaurants, for example, you know, a lot of them you don't offer them as much outdoor seating. You know, in Europe, it's very common that, you know, the plazas and the outdoor culture, you know, and the community, this fresh air and plain, you know, and plain air, that concept. And so the new, you know, I feel like this has unlocked the potential to change some of our American norms.
Yeah.
You know, being able to see and observe things that are happening all along. And I also wanted to say, Ellie, what you mentioned in terms, I feel like people are starved for a good story at this point, right? I think people might be a bit more forgiving during COVID, which has given us permission to be more experimental and more bold in our business decisions.
Absolutely. All right, next question. What was the hardest aspect about bringing your venture to life? And what came easy to you in this process, if anything? Roxy, I'm going to put this back to you.
Yeah, I think what came easy to us was our vision. You know, Corey and I had been discussing how we wanted to work together and what we really wanted to bring to DC, and inspired by my travels and his story, you know, we agreed on the fact that we wanted to change the game in DC, and we wanted to bring really cool experiences to the city so that people could find each other through those experiences and really connect and create those, you know, the emotional connection and those unforgettable memories that you experience, you know, throughout your lifetime. So that was an easy win for us and an easy, I guess, conclusion. But what was difficult was the messaging behind that and building our website, right? We were like, okay, now we have this great concept, we have this great vision, we know what we want to do, we know the industries we want to target, we know who we want our customers to be, but like, how do we create a website, short, concise messaging that reflects who we are and our passion and why you should choose us to work with us. So I would say the messaging was the toughest part for us, but we figured it out. Our website is launched and
Good.
we're now good to go.
Yes, I'm glad. Ellie, do you want to go ahead and talk to that?
Yeah, I think, you know, there were a lot of things that were pretty easy for us that didn't change. Even as, you know, COVID hit. I think the fact that we wanted to be focused specifically on women and women-owned businesses, it's always been a passion of mine. I've always been an advocate for women. And I felt like I was kind of on like this insatiable quest to find something that I felt was kind of lacking in this market. And I think, you know, the idea behind Ellie Jane Collective and it being so female focused was something that I had been kind of craving for a really long time. And so I wanted to bring something to people that I myself had wanted. I think, you know, the biggest part about it, and I've touched on this a little bit earlier, was getting the message out. I mean, we were able to create a website, able to do the branding. I actually also work full-time as the marketing person for WTOP News in Washington, D.C. as well. And so I have a lot of experience. I've been doing marketing, you know, for the past 7 years, and I have a lot of experience in marketing and website development and rebranding and all of that good stuff. So none of that, I would say, was really challenging. This is also the second business that I've started, so I learned a lot from the first one. Helped me along the way. But I would say, you know, the challenging part is getting that message, amplifying your message without the physical events, without the foot traffic, without, you know, being able to physically make those connections. I think it is a little bit more challenging because people are so bombarded. Like, small businesses are trying their best just to stay afloat right now sometimes. Like, and so you reaching out being like, hey, I have this great idea, or I want to be innovative. They're like, I'm literally just trying to like get through my day today. Like, that idea and it's great and I'm very excited about it and I would love to chat with you, but like today I just need to make payroll. So, you know, it's kind of overcoming those challenges of getting in front of or making those connections with small businesses that could help you amplify your message potentially. And that was the hardest part, is not having the physical ability to do those things. And it's still a challenge. That's why I think things like this, you know, the DC Startup Week, doing things virtually is so important. Like, making those connections with people and being able to, you know, get in front of people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise is just, it's been incredibly important for us. And so I would say, that has been the biggest challenge and continues to be. And so we're just navigating that day by day and doing what we can to make those connections and kind of propel ourselves forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I just comment on that really quickly? Because I think Ellie brought up a really great point. I think one of the things that, just to piggyback on your point, it's also like what the consumer wants during this time. Really, in the beginning of COVID, I think the need for virtual events was there, but they weren't getting enough out of it. So like, how do you make virtual events in a COVID world exciting enough and relevant enough for people to want to dial in? Because Zoom fatigue is real, screen fatigue is real. So that's been a challenge for us too. So trying to come up with creative ways to do that. But great point, Ellie.
Absolutely. Ryan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we've got to do some I've got to do business with the two of you, Roxy and Ellie. I could use some help in terms of marketing and branding. Anyway, so I think we found ourselves pivoting, like I said, every day. It's a daily thing. And our goal in opening Mozzeria was to create employment opportunities, particularly for and to uncover some more of these inspiring stories of our employees. The folks who are here every day, who are coming in every day in the pandemic, putting themselves out there, putting themselves at risk, to provide a level of service to both, with our vendors, with our customers, to our cleaning crew who comes in, to do a deep cleaning. I think about the back of the house, it's the other word for the kitchen, the kitchen, but the back of the house, I want to make sure that I want to equalize the playing field with the front of the house. A lot of the times our back of the house folks kind of get the short end of the stick. And, but I want to provide, in terms of cross training with our staff to ensure we level the playing field, because oftentimes those who work back of the house receive, like I said, shorter shrift. Immigrants, persons of color, deaf, disabled folks, stick us in the back of the house. You don't want you in the front of the house. And our philosophy is that everyone should have the equal opportunity and to have competitive wages. And so by cross training and increasing their level of experience leads to leadership opportunities, improving their soft skills, developing those critical skills that sets these employees apart and make them as competitive as possible, for employment and in life. So the goal ultimately, as we talk about businesses and stories, and generally speaking, I think we often focus on the CEOs or the management level, right? Each employee has something unique that they bring to the table. And that's what we want to celebrate and what we want our customers to be aware of. And so I think that that's critical. I think also it's an ongoing challenge in terms of, as we think about retention of our employees, I want to ensure that they feel valued, to provide them the training they need to succeed. And so there are so many things that we in management have to consider in terms of retention, not just employees. Our customers, how do we retain our customer base to keep you coming back to Mozzeria in the midst of a pandemic? How do we market? How do we package that? Is it virtual events? Is it local things like a farmer's market? The farmer's market is still alive and well on H Street. Do we partner with them? So, all of these are opportunities to be innovative every day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We actually have a question from the crowd. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Arsalan. Arsalan wants to know, which industries do you think got hit the hardest? B2B, B2G, or B2C? I would like to know what B2G is. I'm not sure what that is. So if anyone would like to enlighten me, B2G.
Let's see. Did they respond? I'm not sure about B2G either, so you're not alone in that.
Okay, I'm like, am I the only business? Apparently a lot of people know what it is, so don't tell anyone I didn't know what that is. I'm not gonna call it. If anyone wants to answer this question, let me know. But what? Okay, go ahead, Roxy.
I think definitely B2C.
Mm-hmm.
That businesses are restricted, and also, you know, the pandemic has restricted us from really being able to connect with our consumers the way that we normally know how to, and the consumers, and vice versa, right? Consumers to business as well. So I think that channel has been definitely hit the hardest. Of course, B2B has its challenges as well, but really being able to communicate and connect with our consumers the way that we would like to has been an extreme challenge, because we're all just trying to be safe out here and abide by the, you know, abide by the rules. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say on that? We all good?
I would echo that. I think that's right. I mean, I work a lot with federal contractors through, we actually have a federal division with WTOP, and so that business is booming. They do a lot of things online. They always kind of have a lot of it is very tech-centered. And so I think, you know, from that standpoint, yes, they had to make pivots and figure out what that looked like, because you're no longer, you know, on these giant panel discussions or doing events or speaking engagements in the way that you were before. But I think, you know, people have been able to kind of navigate that and transition it to an online platform that they probably should have been doing all along, but it just took a pandemic to kind of get them there. But I think, you know, having that, like I touched on before, that kind of physical connection with your customers is just not the same as it was, and you're probably not going to get in front of the same kind of people based on, you know, your physical location that you could have before. So I think Roxy was right on with her answer.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, next question. Any advice for entrepreneurs thinking about launching a venture right now? Ellie, why don't you go ahead?
I would say go for it. I mean, it can't hurt. Like, what do you have to lose? I think, you know, there's always going to be some version of a pandemic. Like, there's always going to be something that could derail you or set you off track or, you know, make you change how you've thought about your business. But I think that is the amazing thing about being an entrepreneur, is that there's always going to be something that is a challenge or an obstacle that you have to overcome. And I think, you know, that's just part of being in the business. So, and also the other thing too is, like, nothing has to be perfect. Like, I think sometimes the fear of perfection is what stops us from even getting started. And I've struggled with that a lot myself. Like, you know, is this the vision that I really want to put out there to my consumer? Is this really, you know, finished? Is it the finished product? Is it final? Is it perfect? You know, is it polished? And the reality of the situation is that your customers are going to be attracted to you and come back to you because of who you are as a business owner, because of what you represent. You are your business. And if you can come across as authentic, if you can come across as somebody that has that compassion and that, you know, passion overall for your business, and you can kind of get behind your brand, I think that people are going to be into that. Like, people dig authenticity, especially now. And so if you're able to provide that, and you feel like you have something that really represents you as a person, like, people have asked me before too, you know, what sets your business apart? And I would say that it's, you know, it's me. Like, I am the only one who can do what I'm doing. Sure, there are other businesses that can come across, there are other agencies, there are other pizza shops, but, you know, there are only one of you, and you are the only one that can do what you're doing. And so as long as you are willing to be authentic with your customer and be true to who you are as a person and what your vision is, I would say, like, just go for it. And also lean on your resources, you know, reach out to your partners, reach out to businesses in the community. You don't have to do it by yourself. And in fact, I've found that the more that I reach out, the more people are willing to collaborate and the more interested, invested they are in being a part of what you're doing. So, you know, if anyone has any questions or is thinking about launching a business or wants to connect and collaborate, I'm always willing and open to do that. And that's really what makes me excited about being a business owner, is having that community connection and being able to collaborate with others. So my advice was just get started, like, just do it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Before we continue, I have a message from Crystal. She wants to know if any of you are available for mentorship because she needs one. So if you are, please put your information in the chat so she can reach out. That's so kind. Ryan, any advice?
Sure. Crystal? Maybe for me, not me personally, but you do have store managers and employees who love to mentor community members. So come in, we'll share our information with you. And additionally, I really can't top Ellie's comment. This idea of entrepreneurship, what it means, what it looks like. I mean, it's about, you just painted the perfect picture. But the idea of, ask, I mean, the power of the ask, right? People, you got to give people the opportunity to respond. You've got to do the ask. Like Crystal, she asked for a mentor. Maybe she's not finding people walking around with a t-shirt that says, I'm a mentor, please contact me, phone number here or email here, right? I mean, you don't see that. So, I mean, it's critical that you build relationships in the community, like Ellie said, in terms of being in the people business. All of us entrepreneurs are in the people business, and flexibility is key. When I used to teach entrepreneurship at Gallaudet University, back in the day, once upon a time, I used to tell students it was very common for entrepreneurs to be fixed in terms of their goal. They needed to have a mission, they needed to develop their product, their service, but to be flexible. And the idea that how the market responds to your idea, to shift, to change gears depending upon that, having to be agile and flexible really is the most important thing you can learn in entrepreneurship, to get ahead of the game. And even in COVID, the mindset has to be flexibility, because if we're not, it's not going to work. And I really overall be a lifelong student. That's my best advice.
I love that. Thank you. Roxy.
How much time do you have? No, I'm kidding. Well, kind of.
Tell us everything.
I have three, and Corey and I actually, we write our lessons learned down on a board every time we come to a conclusion as entrepreneurs, because you learn so much every single day. And over time, you learn that there are themes to the lessons, right? I would say number one, trust your gut. If your gut is telling you something is wrong or something is right, it's probably right, right? And we've learned that the hard way with customer relations, with people relations, with decisions, everything. We always come back to your gut is right and it's telling you something, so listen to it. Number two, this might not be, I'm gonna try and replace the curse word with something positive here, but sit in your crap. It's okay to sit in it sometimes. And during the pandemic, we were running at 90 miles an hour the first, 1 month, 2 months of it. And then by the end of our second virtual event, we were just exhausted. And we were like, is this even worth it? Are we onto something here? We're putting in so much time and effort. The future, the outlook of the future looks very uncertain. Everything's uncertain. We kind of were a little bit depressed, honestly. And I think, and a little unmotivated, uninspired. And you go through waves of that as an entrepreneur, I think. There are days you wake up and you're like, I'm going to crush it today. And this is the best business ever and the best decision. And then there are days you wake up and you're like, this is hard. And it's you question it every single day. So the best advice someone gave me was, Rox, it's okay to just sit in your crap. Just be okay. Give yourself a week. But at the end of that week, get up and go again, right? If you need a week, just give yourself that week. And then I'm going to drop the link to someone who very much changed my life last year, which is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if anyone's researched him or anything, but the power of visualization is so real. And he talks you through that and how you really should and need to create a map to your future and a map to your future self, and let that drive you and be your North Star through the turbulent waters of being an entrepreneur. When the waves are crashing, just envision your future self, meet that person, who you want to be in 10 years, what she or he feels like, and celebrating the moments, the achievements, what you're wearing, what house you're walking into, what office building you're walking into, really achieving those dreams and feel that and hold on to that. And I would say whenever I'm going through the toughest of times and through the best of times, my future self is constantly showing up for me and pulling me through and like hugging me. I mean, sometimes I get emotional even like when I really visualize that, but create that map to your future and go out and get it. And I really meet your future self. It's a really beautiful thing when you see yourself in that place that you want to be.
Yes, authenticity. I'm gonna have to find out more about that. We're gonna have to talk.
Oh, here, I'll drop the link right now.
Please, thank you. Another question from the crowd, and anyone can answer this. What are some things you look for in seeking partnerships for your businesses?
Does anyone want to answer that?
Anyone want to take a stab at it?
Business partnerships are really important. This is my second company. You learn so much about yourself. And honestly, it kind of depends on where you're at too in life as a person. I would say when I started my first business at the age of 26, I was pretty much a kid. I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to throw cool experiences and parties for a very niche group of people. So my business partners were my best friends, you know, and we weren't where we needed to be there to make, you know, to really think about that partnership. But with Corey, you know, we really had some tough conversations ahead of time. And what my advice would be is work with that person for a little while. Don't sign the red dotted lines until you know that person, how they operate under pressure, what their work ethic is, how they deal with clients, which is huge in a business partnership, how they deal with other people and with their own trauma and with their own like life, honestly. So take the time to get to know that person. Again, I've only known Corey for less than a year. I feel like I've known him a lifetime because we spend way too much time on the phone together. But I feel like I've seen enough of him to know that he's a good person and he's a great business partner. And he balances me in the sense that he can do what I can't do and vice versa. But we both are visionaries and we both are strategists and we share the same vision. So.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Another question from the crowd. What top resources would you recommend for someone interested in starting a business in the creative/branding/experimental marketing field?
Yeah, I'll take that. And I also wanted to touch on the last question too,
Yeah, please.
about seeking partners within your business. So, you know I touched a little bit on authenticity earlier, but I feel like that's a really key part of deciding who or reaching out to people that you're interested in making connections with. Like for me, when I'm looking for a partner, I'm looking for somebody who has those same, I don't want to say morals because that's not necessarily the right word, but you know, we have pillars of our business that are based on like activism, on, you know, female founded businesses, on sustainability, on slow fashion, you know, things like that. Like, and so when I'm looking for business partners, I'm looking for people who have those same kind of ideals in mind, and who would complement the business. And if people were to see it, they'd be like, oh, that partnership like totally makes sense. So I know for me, like when I'm looking for partnerships, that's something that I'm always looking for. I always kind of ask myself, is this like authentically me? Is this somebody that, you know, somebody would see the partnership and think that makes sense? I totally understand why those two businesses collaborate or why those two people are working together. Like it just kind of makes sense. So that's what I would say is if you have like an aesthetic or you have something that you're basing your business on in terms of a pillar or, you know, a promise that you're making to your customer, make sure that the businesses and the people that you're partnering with have those same values, because it's really important and it adds to the authenticity of your brand as a whole. And in terms of top resources, I think the biggest thing for me was getting experience in the field. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's so true. Like you can't even begin to understand what goes into, you know, marketing or branding or creative even, you know, if you've never been in that field. Like, you know, at one point when I wanted to open a physical retail store, my idea was literally to go get hired by a retail store and like figure out how they do their business and not copy it. You know, obviously your business is going to be totally different, but there's no need to like reinvent the wheel. Like there are people that are already doing things that you're doing. And if they're not, then you still have all these resources that you can build upon. So, you know, I would say also you have to be honest with yourself about what it is that you could spend every single, excuse my language, fucking day doing. Like, what is it that you could spend every day doing that gets you up in the morning and gets you excited and makes you want to, you know, work until 10 o'clock at night or into the early hours of the morning? Like, what gets you amped? Because that is something that you're going to spend every single minute, hour, day, your vacation time, your me time, your whatever doing. And so like, what is that thing that like just makes you so excited? Because if you start going into something and you're like, oh my God, this feels like work, it's not going to be fun. Like, and it has to be like, it has to be something that you're so jazzed about that you could be working until 2 o'clock in the morning and not even notice. Like, and so I think that would be also like, check in with yourself. Like, you are your biggest resource too. And there's so many things online, like on the internet. I mean, I like, you know, I talk to lawyer friends of mine, like, how do I even just get started applying for like an EIN or, you know, for like my, you know, business license or my retail license? Like, how do you even, like, where do you even start? And there's so many resources out there, whether it's, you know, the Small Business Administration or other entrepreneurs like that can help you through that. So, you know, I think those would be, you know, my pieces of advice. If you know what field you want to be in and you don't have any physical job experience, like, go out and do it. And like, you can be honest with people when you're applying for the job. Like, I don't, you know, necessarily have all of the experience, but attitude goes a long way. And people who are willing to learn, like, you know, you can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude and positivity. And so if you're willing to go in and really dive in and do the hard work, like, people are going to be open to that. And then use yourself, and then also go online, like, start doing some of your research online and rely on the people that you know who, whether it's a lawyer friend or a friend who works in the retail industry or somebody who's in, you know, the creative branding field, like, reach out to those people and be willing to do the hard work.
Yep, I'm going to echo that. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Yes. So in terms of all of your suggestions, I think too, because this is DC Startup Week, we might want to maximize in terms of the resources available in DC, right? There's a plethora. And so folks, I used to encourage my students who are thinking about starting up a business, or those of you who are looking at entrepreneurship and looking at this as a possible field for themselves, you would be amazed how much Washington, DC partners with other companies and the platform that allows you, and local universities, colleges. Howard has a small business development center that is phenomenal. Additionally, there are other universities, University of Maryland, Georgetown, American University, you know, the DC Consortium, George Washington, all of them have incredible entrepreneurship programs. And you can subscribe to their newsletters. And that gives you access to a variety of information and resources that they're not just for students, it's for community members as well. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that. I know it can be overwhelming in terms of the glut of resources that are out there, but if you need to have a sense of what are reliable sources and that will really benefit you in the long run in terms of setting your business up, and what will actually come to you at the end of the day. So.
Yes, absolutely. There's so many resources out there. I like that, Ryan. I'm actually subscribed to AU's like Innovation Newsletter, Howard's, Georgetown, and every time I find a new lead for a story, but also I'm able to see what other entrepreneurs and people are doing in the space. So it's really, really nice. And those programs are really plugged into the startup and DC tech communities here. So you should definitely be subscribed to those. But I'm going to echo what Ellie said about reaching out to people online who are, you know, branding gurus and stuff like that. Going back to what Ryan said and a bunch of other folks on the panel said, you have to ask. You just have to ask. I wanted to learn how to freelance, so I reached out to a reporter that I admire a lot. She's amazing. She's younger than me too. That's the thing, is you got to be humble about wanting to learn and about being able to experience things. She's younger than me, and she's like a freelance freaking goddess. She has like her own newsletter and everything. I wanted to learn how to freelance. I just DM'd her on Twitter. We hopped on the phone for an hour, and she like gave me a rundown of how she got to where she is. And now I am freelancing for other publications. And I don't think I would have learned how to do that if I didn't just ask. And from then on, I just started to reach out to different editors, different freelancers I know online in the DC community, and kind of just created my own little small network of my own mentors. And, you know, I got on the phone and got to talk to all these people for some 20 minutes, some an hour, and now we're like friends, and I'm able to share with them my experiences. So definitely don't be afraid to ask, and use LinkedIn. I'm like a LinkedIn freak. I'm on LinkedIn. You can see when people are online. You can see where they've worked. You can see who else they're connected with. So you can definitely build your network that way. But yes, resources for sure. I did have a few more questions, but it looks like we ran out of time. I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you, Corey, if you want to do a wrap-up message. I just want to say thank you to the panelists, and thank you everyone for joining us today, for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you to, my notes up here. I had a couple things I wanted to say. Thank you to Michelai, Ryan, Ellie, and Roxy for bringing your perspectives to this fantastic discussion on launching a business during COVID. We really appreciate your support of the DC startup community, and please feel free to reach out to them after the event. I definitely, echo what Ryan was saying. I got to where I'm at because I reached out. I reached out to Rachel. Rachel took me under her wing and helped me start my business. So definitely. Love that. So we've got some really cool events coming up today. Just here at the 11 o'clock hour, we've got the Founders Focus, Ask Founders Anything. We've been doing those every day at 11. We've got Scott Case, who is moderating those. This time we have Joe Mechlinski, the CEO of the Shift the Work, and Genevieve Rafla, who is the Director of Communications at Upside Business Travel. Is going to be a great conversation. You can ask them anything about their experience and they will answer your questions. At the 12 o'clock hour, we've got Growth Through Advertising, and we have Get Unstuck with Coy Hernandez, who is the design thinker at AARP Innovation Labs. So hope to see you guys at some of those events. One other quick plug I want to make. Michelai has written some amazing articles about DC Startup Week this year. Thank you so much for your help on that and your partnership. We have our pitch competition coming up tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's the culmination of the whole week. So excited. We had 10 really fantastic entrepreneurs pitch their businesses on Monday. We had 5 finalists from that, and they're going to battle it out tomorrow to see who is going to be the winner. And check out Technically DC to see the 5 finalists, and we'll see you guys at future sessions. Thank you all.